remember that as nonprofit people, this conversation has to be grounded in nonpartisanship. This is very hard for me, I am very partisan as a person, but as a nonprofit employee, I remember that my energy here is around seeing that people vote and express their own beliefs and their own values, regardless of what those are. So we will not have a partisan conversation, but we will have a passionate conversation, I'm more than sure. And we will begin that conversation by me asking each of the panelists, starting with Hannah, why does this topic matter to you?
Sure. Thank you, Peggy. And first of all, thanks to the Bear Center for being partners in this civic engagement work. You all were wonderful co-hosting in your own space the city and county trainings for the census for so many of our nonprofit partners. So thank you so much. And for myself, voting really matters. As someone who is the child of immigrants from the Philippines, I went to my parents' citizenship ceremony when I was maybe 5 or 6, and I didn't know what was going on, but I would later, reap the benefits of that status. And knowing that so many people across the country aren't able to vote, it's so much more important for folks who do have that ability to be able to voice their opinions, not just for themselves, but for the communities that they live in and serve.
Thank you so much, Hannah. It's just great to see you. Thank you for being here. Kate, why does this topic matter to you personally?
This topic matters to me personally because voting and civic engagement was always a part of my life growing up and through my young adulthood. And then I had the opportunity while I was in grad school getting my master's in social work to intern at the Institute for the Political Advancement of Social Work. And it really was ingrained in me that being civically active and encouraging clients social work clients at every level to be civically active is an ethical responsibility of social workers. So I feel that it's my responsibility to first and foremost vote and to make sure that all populations I am working with get out to vote. And my career has been in housing and ending homelessness. I truly believe that housing is a right, and if we don't get out and vote and elect officials that we think will support that right, it will be very hard to see change. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Kate. And so here's DeWitt, who in many ways is the grandmaster of voter engagement and voter, we'll tell some stories later on, DeWitt, but why does this topic matter to you personally?
Because as a freshman in high school, the 1963 March on Washington, led by A. Philip Randolph, Walter Reuther, and Bayard Rustin took place. As a sophomore in high school, the 1964 Civil Rights Act was passed. As a junior in high school, the 1965 Voting Rights Act was passed. Graduating from high school and going to college, I was fortunate enough to have an athletic scholarship to go. And we all know what took place in 1968. At the end of basketball season in 1968, I stopped going to class and I followed George Wallace around the entire country because racism was rampant. It was destructive of our communities. And people were dying for years, trying to exercise their rights to vote, trying to achieve justice and equity in our country. It is part of my core. It is part of it is all of who I am. And I will use every ounce of my breath till I die to work for justice and equity in America.
Testify, brother. Way to go. I spent last night watching the new documentary about John Lewis, so those images and those themes that you were evoking are very much in my brain. And thank you so much for all that you have done. As I said, we'll get to it with DeWitt more about the kinds of work that he has done over time. So we envisioned this. I was really tickled to see who is on this call with us. We have representatives, not only, of course, from the Forbes Funds, the Housing Alliance, and A. Philip Randolph, all of which are very active in this fight. But we also have people from the League of Women Voters and from the Thomas Merton Center and from Achieva and CLASS and Planned Parenthood and others that are historic warriors in trying to see that the vote is available and encouraged and not blocked in any way. So I know that each of you brings rich experience, and as I said, we'll stop periodically and let you talk, ask questions. But if you have a thought that you just really want to say, put it in the chat box and we'll take it as quickly as we can. But the way we're going to organize the rest of our time this morning is through a series of questions. And so the first one that I'd like the panelists to address is, what is the urgency of voting? What are the ramifications of not voting? Why vote? Who would like to speak to that question first?
Well, I'm always willing to make a start. And let me put it in this context. If we look at healthcare, if we look at the civil rights issue, in the past 4 years, the current president has appointed 198 people to the bench. Those judicial appointments will drive legislative judicial decisions for at least 2 generations. No matter what we are able to do legislatively or morally, judicial appointments can negate everything on a legal basis. So we have to have real direct impact in those decisions. When we talk about economics, there is, and this is, and I say this in a nonpartisan way, for the past 20 plus years, there have been distinct differences in what happens with the economy of this nation, from paying off the national debt and being a creditor nation as opposed to a debtor nation based upon who's in the Oval Office. Mm-hmm. We have to recognize those distinct issues. And last but not least, we have to acknowledge in every shape that Black Lives Matter, that there has to be police reform. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying defunding, there has to be reform. There has to be a reallocation of resources, reprioritizing where we put resources. Mm-hmm. Though it is clear that those decisions are impacted by decisions made at the ballot box.
Thank you, DeWitt. Hannah or Kate, what would you like to say on this subject?
Sure. I'm really glad that Mr. Walton pointed out the systemic and structural issues as to why individuals should cast their ballot. And I want to recognize as well that across the country, there are so many barriers to voting that already exist. So much so that, there are proportions of the population who aren't able to speak and be politically active. But luckily in Pennsylvania, we have had recent reform that has made it easier for folks to either vote by mail and allowed for more generous timelines to do that. And so, I think what Mr. Walton pointed out is really important. But also I want to point out that voting is really one part of a political active process for folks. And I think the importance I want to highlight is to get the people that we serve, getting to acknowledge their own power to be politically active. Because when people are dealing with the multitude of challenges regarding, their housing, their education, or putting food on the table, it's so easy to discount folks who have those challenges and say they don't have the bandwidth to pay attention to politics. But in my mind, that's false. Politics is inherent in helping people overcome any of those immediate challenges they have. And it's up to us to really help them see that in themselves and the folks that they work with.
Great. Kate?
I don't have too much to add because the two previous panelists did such an excellent job. They covered a lot of what I would say, but I would just, I guess, emphasize and add in a different way that voting is for folks often a very important first step in civic engagement. And it's something that we can all do. And it really is a way for everyone to have a voice. And I think, unfortunately, there are so many populations in Pennsylvania across the country that have not had their voices heard. And so voting, getting out to vote, and then using that as a first step to help people become more civically engaged is very important. We're working through our initiative with nonprofits around the state, and nonprofit organizations are very much trusted partners. And they are groups that can work to mobilize people to vote because they've already had that established relationship. And nonprofits know how to reach the clients and consumers, and they know the important issues around healthcare and housing and racial disparity and systemic racism. So it's, to me, very important that, we as nonprofits work to help people to take that first step and vote.
Excellent, excellent answers from all three of you. And I guess I would say, why vote? It's a measure of, I remember my first vote that I got to cast, and that it was like, I'm a grown-up now. I get to vote. And the pleasure that I take in going to the polls, seeing my neighbors, wearing that little sticker that says I voted all day, it's just part of being a citizen, but being in my life, in my community. So why vote? For all the excellent reasons that our panelists presented, but also maybe for the endorphins it releases in you when you've cast your ballot and feel like you've said your say to what degree you can. So there's a lot going on in the press right now, a lot of activity about how to vote. Hannah began to talk a little bit about the fact that it has become slightly easier. I really want us to spend just a little time from each of your perspectives on helping the people on the call understand choices about voting and where and how, and cautions about things that may make it more difficult or more confusing. So who would like to get started? Maybe Hannah, I'll start with you this time and ask if you would speak to us about, the things that you're thinking about on the how to vote issue.
Yes, thank you, Peggy. And I'm glad that you asked that, because this past Wednesday, we had a webinar with our various partners, and some of them were presented by the Department of State, who had some great info as to the when and where and how of voting. And so I'll gladly share all of that. So as folks know, we're in a pandemic.
Excuse me, is that on your slide? Do you want Carrie to project a slide?
Oh, it is not on a slide.
Okay, sorry.
Apologies. No, that's perfectly fine. Maybe it should have been. But, voting by mail is something that is available to Pennsylvanians, and it's something that's really being pushed as a safer and also trustworthy option. Despite the misinformation that's going around about voting by mail being, having some possibility for fraud, voting by mail is a very safe and trustworthy option. And so some important deadlines are that voter registration deadline is October 19th. And then the last day to apply for an absentee or mail-in ballot is October 27th. And folks can do that by going online. I'm happy to plug that in the chat at votespa.com. And so that's really something that we're pushing to people. And the Department of State also said that the best way to ensure that you get a ballot in the mail as soon as possible, is to go through the steps either online or through a physical application as soon as possible. And if folks are worried about, will my ballot actually arrive at my county Board of Elections on time, they highly encourage, physically going and dropping off that ballot. But as we know, that's a barrier in itself. Some people have to drive an hour or more to drop off that ballot, depending on where they live. So I think it's important for us as nonprofit folks who are helping organize the people we serve and our employees as well and our coworkers to say, what's your plan for election day? Are you going to fill out your ballot today? Or are you going to set out a certain period of time and put together a plan so that you can actually cast your ballot either in person or via the mail?
Thank you, Hannah. DeWitt, I know you've done all kinds of election engagement. I've helped you on some of them, been great experiences. How to vote? What do you have to say to people about, and again, the people on this call are helping agents. They're all nonprofit people. So how can you help them facilitate other people's engagement?
Well, Peg, let me start this by saying you are expected. We are the Pittsburgh A. Philip Randolph Institute is expecting you to continue your history of working with us on elections. You've been you are our first draft pick in our fantasy league for 2020, baby.
You got it, babe. Whatever you need.
So, as we go on, I'll share with you a host of the work that the Pittsburgh A. Philip Randolph Institute is working on. But I also wear a hat as an Allegheny County councilman. And so we're using all of the tools in my tool bag as a steel worker, as a not-for-profit program director, as a Black elected. I've been using those resources to have conversations with the administration, the current Allegheny County administration. And Rich Fitzgerald has been incredibly collaborative. And we've had some discussions. And so let me give you guys a heads up. It is my understanding that sometime today that there will be an announcement here in Allegheny County outlining the establishment of satellite voting for 3 weekends in November. I mean, in October. I meant October. It is my understanding, and I can't say this with any authority, but it is my belief that the county office building election bureau will be open on Fridays and Saturdays for folks to walk in, to apply, to register to vote, to apply for an absentee ballot or a mail ballot, and to complete that right there on that site. Additionally, there will be sites at Boyce Park, North Park, South Park, in Carnegie, and West Mifflin at the CCAC campus. I'm not saying this with any authority, but it is my belief, my strong belief, that these things are going to be announced today. In addition, as an African American, we know how important it is and critical it is to have African American participation. It is my belief that we will have on one weekend a satellite site at CCAC Homewood, another weekend a site in the Hill District, and the third weekend a site on the north side, both on Saturday and Sunday, to ensure maximize opportunities for folks to participate in the electoral process. This is stupendous. This is a powerful opportunity to expand voting opportunities for all of us across Allegheny County.
That's wonderful news, DeWitt. Thank you so much. I'll be waiting for that announcement. Kate, I know you're busy in this area as well, so how to vote?
Sure. So, and maybe I wonder if this would be a good time to show my slides, or we certainly can wait
Sure.
until later.
Yeah.
But this might be a good time.
Carrie, show the slides for Kate.
The Housing Alliance of Pennsylvania is very excited to, for the first time, be a state anchor for the nonprofit votes, nonprofit voting initiative. And we are working with 24 nonprofits around the state to help support them and encouraging their clients and contacts to register to vote, apply for a mail-in ballot if that's how they prefer to vote, and we've set up a reminder system around voting. So this slide right here that we're on now, this direct link brings you to a unique URL on the Housing Alliance of Pennsylvania's website. And at that link, it's kind of one-stop shopping. You can register to vote. You can apply online for a mail-in ballot, and something which I think piggybacks on what the previous panelists talked about, you can sign up for our digital reminder card system. So when you click the link to work through the digital reminder, it walks you through questions that covered some of the content we've already talked about. But are you registered to vote? Do you need to verify that? Are you interested in a mail-in ballot? Do you know how to apply for one? And then getting into some prompts about what your plan is to actually get out and vote. So I encourage everyone on this webinar, feel free to copy down or cut and paste this link, and you can share it with your network, because we're really hoping that it will, by having everything in one place, including the voter reminder, which is unique to this project, that will help us ensure that everyone who wants to vote votes. And that's really all I have to add about that. I mean, we're encouraging people to use the mail-in ballot system. We think that it's a very safe and option, and we've been working closely and had some presentations by the Department of State. So I would just echo what Hannah said about using their resources. I'm sharing on the screen now the contact information for myself and my colleague Kina Minifield. And even if organizations are not one of the 24 nonprofits we've identified and are working with, again, you can still use this direct link as a way to encourage people to vote. We'll also be participating and holding a webinar, and I will share the information about how to register for that. It's going to come out later today or tomorrow. We are also a partner for National Voter Registration Day, which is an unofficial voter registration holiday that this year is happening on Tuesday, September 22nd. We're going to hold a webinar that day to promote National Voter Registration Day. And on that webinar, we're going to hear directly from Nonprofit Vote, and then also from a few of the lead staff on this voting initiative from our partners, and they're going to share the great work they're doing about how they're getting voter contacts. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. So I'd like to open up now for a moment. Are there any questions, comments, or thoughts? As I said, I know we have colleagues on this call who are also very active in this space and doing things. Anything anybody else would like to share right now, or ask a question of our panelists at this moment in time around, why vote and how to vote?
Hi, Peggy. This is Alice Washington from the Stepping Stone Pathways. I just read an article. I know you can't believe everything you read, but there was a picture to it where a lot of mail was being dumped in a different state. And there's a concern that what if that mail had people who voted in there? Does anyone know anything about that? Like, how can someone know for sure that their vote was received and cast if they send it via mail?
Anyone on the panel want to speak to Alice about that question?
You can track through the elections board, once you make an application, whether or not the ballot was sent to you, whether or not it was received, and whether or not it was actually tabulated. It is not a perfect system, but there are processes that when they receive it, they scan it in. And there are, right now, there are some efforts being made to see if it's possible to start counting mail ballots early.
Mhm.
How that will be resolved, I don't know, but there are mechanisms at the elections board, and you can check and you can use the online process to determine whether or not your ballot has been received. Your ballot that you mail back has been received.
But what are we going to do if the ballot isn't received? What if we track it and we find that our ballot has gone astray?
Um,
I'm sorry, Alice, you were trying to speak as well, please.
Can
Someone
you
else
send
can
me a
send it.
link of
It-
where they can go to make sure to track that their ballot was received and counted? Is
It's
there a
in,
link that they can go to?
yes, there's one in the chat room, Alice, right now, I believe. Hannah, isn't that? So I guess, as I said, I understand we can find out whether it was received. I mean, but what if it's not received and we mailed it? Is there recourse? Does anybody know?
I think that is problematic because you have the ability to go to a polling place and vote in person.
Uh-huh.
The question becomes, would that be considered voter fraud? There's someone sitting in the Oval Office that is sowing that confusion, and I don't have the answer as I sit here.
Yeah.
That's probably best answered by an election law attorney.
Uh-huh. Right. Hannah or Kate, anything you want to say in response to Alice's concern about the ballot actually being received? Kate?
I would need to confirm this with the Department of State, but and Hannah may know, so she may be able to correct me, but I believe that there's the opportunity to vote by provisional ballot as well.
Yes,
On election day,
that's the answer.
How? I'm sorry, could you elaborate on
So
that?
you would go to your polling place and you would fill out, they have them on hand, you would fill out a provisional ballot. So for example, we had a question from one of our nonprofit partners, and this is somewhat related, but it may walk through the steps that you need. So, somebody said to me yesterday, what do I do if I apply for a mail-in ballot and I receive it, but then for whatever reason, maybe there's a concern the ballot won't get there on time or whatnot. They decide on that day they want to go vote in person. This is if you have the mail-in ballot in hand, you would have to bring it with you. It could be destroyed there and then you could vote in person. If you don't have the ballot with you, but they know you've received a mail-in, you then need to vote provisionally. So that's always an option for all of us, is to vote provisionally. If you use that term, I'd like a provisional ballot, the election workers should know what to do, but Hannah and DeWitt may be able to add more to this.
No, I think, Kate, I think you really summarized it well, so thank you.
And
I'm always so cautious because I want to make sure I'm giving very accurate information.
And as DeWitt said, these are legal challenges that we are talking about. And to my knowledge, none of us are attorneys on this call. So we need to be thoughtful about what we say. But I think that casting a provisional ballot is an important step if you are concerned that your vote was not counted.
Yeah, and I will say, Rachel, I believe her last name is Bloom, I hope I'm getting it correct, who worked for the Department of State, has been an excellent resource and is very responsive to all my questions. So I'll take a minute and look for her name and title and contact information and share that in this chat.
Perfect.
Because then you would get the answers right from the authority.
And for the Pittsburgh A. Philip Randolph Institute, the steelworkers, for our election effort for this election cycle, the United Steelworkers has provided several attorneys to be part of our legal team, and retired Judge Walco has also volunteered to become part of our legal team as well. So we're in the near term, we'll have the resources to be able to answer that question. I just can't answer it today. I can
So
get
when
it.
you-
I can get a
when you-
legal opinion for you.
Yeah, when you get that, DeWitt, if you would share it with Hannah and Kate and me, I'll
Okay.
see that Alice and anyone on this call gets it as well. So that, again, our purpose here in part, and that's kind of our next question, is how can we deepen our network? How can we support each other in the best possible ways? And so these resources that you all are identifying are really invaluable. And I can say on the side of the Bear Center, we'll make a list on our website and share whatever you all share with us will be distributed through our network of about 10,000 subscribers and people who are looking at the website, because this is a shared concern. There's nobody who shouldn't be caring about what you all are learning and doing and helping people to know. Alice, did you have something else you wanted to say?
Yes, is there something that we can share on our social media and on our websites to our viewers as well to help educate those and encourage them to vote?
Absolutely. Kate's information, is this one-stop shopping place is really intriguing to me. She's got it so that it looks to me like if you go there, many concerns and questions that people might have a path, a way to work on it. And Hannah is talking about these webinars. We have information on those. We will share DeWitt's information. So as I said, I think, but perhaps maybe first you want to just take a look at the PA votes at the Housing Alliance. Kate, do you want to give a little bit more detail of the breadth of your resource there?
Sure. So if you go to that PA Votes link, it's going to take you directly to the Department of State's voter registration site. Then there is a second link for an application to vote online, and then there is our voter reminder card. As far as resources around voting, the actual Department of State's website has really great information. And to me, they've really it's a lot of robust information about voting, and there are a lot of kind of frequently asked questions there. And I see that Hannah has put in the chat the information that Nonprofit Vote has on their website. Those are two other really great resources. And I will see, I'm sure I can share it with this group. We are working with our partners on a FAQ fact sheet about voting in Pennsylvania. And I don't see any reason why I can't, I don't know that it's finalized yet, but once it's ready, I can share that with all of you so that you have that, because it gets to some of the questions that Alice asked and other questions as well.
Yeah, I guess I'd like to make a pact with you guys and others that we will be agents of distributing your information whenever we possibly can, because this is challenging but Kate made a point that So I was in New Orleans after Katrina. I was asked, I lived in Pittsburgh, but I was asked to go to Baton Rouge after Katrina and help the governor set up a foundation to receive disaster relief monies. And one of the things in times of great turmoil, and we can certainly say that we are living in a time of great turmoil, you know, just finding the information can be really challenging for people. And the more we partner and share and collaborate, the stronger our response can be. So, Alice, by all means, send this stuff to everybody you know, and know, because nonprofits are trusted resources. The people we serve know us and like us in many cases, and will listen to you, Alice, or to you, Hannah, or to you, DeWitt, or to you, Kate, with a different ear and a different sense of trust that you're getting solid information that that's legitimate. So it's really quite important. So what are we, guys? Are we 53 days from Election Day or 52 days from Election Day? Something like that, I think. What do we need to do as concerned and involved, engaged nonprofit people? What are, if from each of you, what are like the two or three things that if you don't do anything else, do this? What would you say to our group here? What must we do between now and Election Day so that we can look at ourselves in the mirror and feel we did the best we could? You know, we made every effort. So Kate, do you want to get us started? What are two or three things that we must do?
You know, I think everyone who you are communicating with, whether most likely these days it's virtually, but any opportunity for in-person, whether you are volunteering at a food distribution site or involved in this is all kind of focused around food, but if you're involved in something where school kids are coming up to pick up their lunch at lunchtime, their federal lunch because schools are not open, to be talking to any adult over the age of 18 about voting. And the questions to ask are not only, you know, are you registered to vote? But if they tell you this individual says they are you registered at your current address? And then following up with that is, do you need information about applying for a mail-in ballot? And because research has shown, and Hannah's probably seen this too from Nonprofit Vote, that it often takes more than one communication, one conversation, one phone call, one text message to get someone to vote, because it's very easy to say, oh yes, I'm going to do that later. But in-person or direct communication, whether it's in person or on the phone or virtual, I feel really has the biggest impact, is encouraging people to vote. So I would just say that one thing is, you know, are you registered? Is your information up to date? Do you know how to get a mail-in ballot if you'd like one?
Perfect. DeWitt, what do we need to do for the next 50 whatever days?
Build collaborations, increase outreach, and urge everyone to participate in the process. And I think we need to go a step further. At the same time, urge them to participate in the census as well. They are connected.
Yes. Want to talk about that just a minute?
Well, look, there is a significant level, a high level of intellect and engagement from all of these faces and names that I see on this call. So we all know how important it is. Nobody needs me pontificating about the esoteric value derived as a result. Either we in or we left behind. Just that simple.
Yeah. Thanks. So Hannah, what must we do between now and Election Day?
The two things that I would add are to really utilize the key communication channels that your organization already uses to keep beating the drum. And we know that through social media, especially through targeted ads, that we can reach folks who may not, be watching the news, because the news is hard to watch sometimes these days, but they'll be accessing information via social media. So if your organization already communicates well in that way, I would say integrate some of the information that's available online from the State Department or from the Housing Alliance of PA into that messaging, in addition to the in-person or interpersonal communication that Kate mentioned. And then second, I would also say utilize small group organizing. In GPNP's experience, we get the most value when folks are in groups of 5, 6, or even more, and they're sharing best practices with each other. And so the folks on the call here today, I think, are already passionate about getting out the vote and helping people realize their political power. But perhaps there are folks who are trying things that some folks don't know about. So in our previous webinar, which if Carrie wouldn't mind sharing the slide of our webinar schedule, that'd be wonderful. Folks talked about doing drive-through voter registration drives. So instead of going door to door, which is, not necessarily the most effective thing right now with the pandemic, but utilizing drive-throughs where people are already getting supplies that they may need, whether it's food or something of that nature, and also getting them to register to vote then. And so you'll see here, we have webinars every Wednesday this month with some lovely partners like the Keystone Progress Education Fund, Pittsburgh Community Resource Group, and so many more. And those are spaces where we have folks come and share their practices, as well as learn from folks in Allegheny County and beyond how people are getting out the vote in Southwestern PA.
That's great, Hannah. That's really excellent. I saw in the chat room that Maureen from the League of Women Voters had posted a resource as well. Maureen, would you like to talk to us about that resource too?
Sure. The League of Women Voters obviously is a nonpartisan organization, and one of the things that we've done this year is to try to find a way to reach voters during this time of COVID. And so we have created extensive information on our local website, which is lwvpgh.org. And if you click on the voter resources icon on that page, it will bring up an extensive array of information from how to register to vote, frequently asked questions, a civics lesson for both high school and college students, because we're trying very extensively to reach people like that who may not be registered or will need absentee ballots and things like that. There are all sorts of infographics that can be printed directly from the website that have a whole lot of factual information in an easy to read format. We're trying to do a lot of bulleted information so that people don't have to read paragraphs and paragraphs of information. Those can be used through social media. We also are doing a whole lot of social media, both on our Facebook page, our Twitter account, and so forth. And there are short videos that are coming out on Twitter, 20-second videos basically about this is why it's important to vote and this is how you vote. So lots and lots of information, very factual, easy to understand, easy to read, and I encourage as many people as possible to get that information out, because the League is in fact a fairly trusted source in terms of being nonpartisan.
Thank you so much, Maureen. I know that all that to be true that you said, a very trusted source, and I think that sounds like you've got a wealth of good information. I'm sitting here thinking about, what we can personally do. One of the things that the Bear Center has been doing throughout the pandemic since March is we have a friendly face campaign. And we have been fortunate to have a number of our instructors talk about how do you reschedule a special event, or what do you do to keep your donors close, you know, very technical kinds of information. But every other week I'm on there sort of talking about how are you doing and how can you manage through this pandemic. And so I know one thing for sure is my next friendly face will be about you guys. It will be about the resources that exist in our community to encourage good information and the proliferation of voting across, and thinking about, you know, is it a little flyer that has some of these resources? So Hannah's put up here about Spanish language resources, and Preston has put up some more information about your personal ballot. And Preston, I want to come back and get you to talk about that in just a moment. But there's a wealth of information, and we've done this in 35 minutes or something, and you know, maybe 45, and barely scratched the surface, I'm sure. So is there something that goes in a lunch bag? Is there something that's out at a church on a table? Is there the use of social media that Hannah was talking about earlier? Absolutely. We've all got some form of social media. I'm an old lady, so I'm still a Facebook person, and I've got a big Facebook post that's going to be putting up to my group. So let's go to Preston for a moment, and then we're going to come back to the panelists and sort of wrap this up, I think, in just a few minutes. But Preston, can you talk to us a little bit about the vote411.org?
Preston is my spouse. I'm Annette Scheimer. And
Oh, hi, Annette. Welcome.
That's okay. Maureen's laughing. Preston is actually in the League of Women Voters office doing the treasurer's work right now. And anyway, let me talk about vote411.org. Let's presume that you are registered. Let's presume that you have figured out how you are going to get a ballot, whether you're going to do it in person or going to go by mail in some way. You're going to get a piece of paper that has a bunch of names on it. What are the offices that are up? So if you go to vote411.org, you can see your personal ballot. You can see, you have to put in your address. We don't retain that information, by the way. So you will find out who the candidates are for state senate, for Congress, for state senate, state house, and the other statewide offices. So it's not just president. I will tell you, if you go right now, you will not find the presidential candidates on there. That's because nationwide, that ballot is not determined yet. There's still some issues happening in some of the states about minor parties particularly, but about September 18th, I think, they hope to have all the presidential candidates on there. So anyway, my point is, go to vote411.org, take a look at it, put your address in there, and you will see all of the candidates on your ballot. Okay.
Excellent. Thank you so much, and welcome. Gary, can we go back to the view of everybody on the screen? Thank you. So, Hannah, do you want to say any more about nonprofit votes? You've talked a couple of times, and Kate has as well. Any other information that should be shared with the group about that resource?
I would toss it to Kate, since Housing Alliance of PA is their core partner. But I just speak highly of nonprofit votes. They're wonderful people and super helpful.
Great. Kate, anything else to add to the resource acquisition conversation we're having?
No, I don't think so. I think they've all been great resources. I would just echo, you know, we're so excited that we had the opportunity to be a state anchor for nonprofit votes this year, and it's been a wonderful experience working with them. And you know, they've been a tremendous resource. So, you know, we have a goal of with our work with nonprofit votes through our 24 nonprofit partners, getting 4,000 new voter contacts.
Wow.
So, that's our goal. And our partners are making great work, and they're, really working. They're so creative how they're going about during these times and getting those voter contacts. So it can be done. And there are resources and support out there for this important work.
So I want to just share with you all a group that I'm using, and it's called Vote Forward. I believe it's voteforward.org. And they ask you to adopt 20 voters at a time. They send you the letter. You download and print it on your own printer at home. It has the person's name and address at the bottom of the page. They ask that you personally address the letter, that you write a paragraph about why you vote. So it is really purely nonpartisan. It's such a smart nonprofit move because they have put the costs of this pretty much into the individual person. You print it, you get the envelope, you get the postage, and then they're going to tell us the date that they want these letters to drop. I have been addressing letters to people in Texas. I am a Texan, and I have been quite concerned about Texas for a very long time, guys. At any rate, it is so interesting to me that by looking at the names, I am primarily addressing letters to people who have voted but haven't consistently voted. That's the criteria they use. And they are, in many cases, at least their surnames are Hispanic names. And so it's really giving me pleasure to feel like I am putting one little piece of information about the importance and value of voting to me, to people who I want to see represented, I want to see have better lives because of their vote. And that's what I believe happens when we vote, is that we are hoping for other people's lives to be better as well as for our own. But Vote Forward, there are many of these. I'm sure many of you I've heard a lot of people doing postcards, and I know there's a great deal of activity, but this one's smart because they say in fundraising, never underestimate the power of a handwritten note. And so this, as I said, not only shares the cost across all of us, but it has your handwriting, my husband's handwriting, and your personal statement about why you vote, what voting means to you. And then this person gets a stamped, hand-addressed envelope, which is proven to be more likely to be opened than any mass-generated letter. So they said they have now passed 5 million letters, 5 million voters adopted, and they are going for 10 million. And on their website, they lack no shame. They say, could you please do 1,000 letters? Well, I don't think I'll do 1,000, but I'm surely going to do as many as I can, because it feels to me like this very direct way of saying, I'm a person here. I'm talking to you, the person there, about something that's important to both of us. There is mutual benefit in this, and let's talk to each other about why we want this to be your practice. So at any rate, as I said, there's lots and lots of ways to get involved, but I'd like to return to our panelists and say, sort of in closing now, if there's one thing that you heard or said or know that must sort of shine out of all of this, please share that imperative that you feel as we close our time together. Kate, I'll go to you.
I would say just, a plug to use our PA Votes link, send it to everyone you're working with, use it on your social media, and encourage people to vote, remind them why you are voting, encourage them to vote, if they want to apply for a mail-in ballot, and sign up for a reminder and make a plan to vote.
Perfect. Hannah, what must we do? One thing to be sure we do.
So hard to pick one thing, but I think what I would focus on is doing that kind of familial organizing, talking to the people in your sphere, your own personal sphere, because sometimes you underestimate, you think someone's going to vote and then something happens and they're not able to. So really reaching out to the people you have the most influence on to make sure that they vote, and pay attention to where people need help as well. I mean, we need poll workers. In-person locations are going to need pens and PPE, and so find out where you can be of most help this election season.
Perfect. And DeWitt, bring us home. What must we do?
Vote, encourage people to vote. The Pittsburgh A. Philip Randolph Institute has a specific population that we're targeting, and that's African Americans. In all of the counties in Western PA, there are 117,990 African Americans that are registered to vote.
Oh.
And in 2016, 70,217 voted. That's 62%. We need to raise that to at least 70%. And so again, we are working in a very targeted fashion, encouraging people of color to participate, and specifically African Americans. We can't leave any stone unturned, because again, it is our future that is at risk. So vote.
Vote. So yeah, we began with the statistic of what I had found was 68% in Pennsylvania voted. No, I'm sorry, not that. 58% in Pennsylvania voted, 61% here. African-American vote at 62% was a little bit better than the whole population. But still, that's a whole lot of people who could vote and should vote who didn't vote. And this year, we need every one of those people. So let's all continue the wonderful work that each one of you is doing. It's heartening to be on this call this morning. You make me feel better about being on the planet, guys, because you're on it and you're working, and I have confidence that we will be successful. So thank each one of you who joined us this morning. Particular thanks to my wonderful panel. I really deeply appreciate your generosity of time and expertise this morning. And I can promise you that the Bear Center will be a partner to you in every way we possibly can. We will distribute your information, we will encourage, and we will celebrate with all of us on the morning after. So thank you all again, and we look forward to seeing you as life continues to unfold. Please take a hug from me for each person on this call. Take the thought for the deed, and have a good weekend. Thank you so much, and we will talk again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peggy. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you,
you all.
everyone.